More now, we're joined from Odesa by global affairs analyst Michael Bociurkiw. He's also a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Michael, thank you so much for joining us again.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Michael, just curious where you are. What's the situation on the ground there right now?
Well, it was a very violent night. I can't remember the last time we had drones attacking Odesa, not only deep into the night, but also this morning into daylight hours, which may explain why I look a bit tired. But I really feel for the residents of Odesa who have been putting up with this for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. Also, 24 hours ago, World Port Odesa, the very port that delivers food and fertilizer to the world, was also struck. So, you mentioned the ceasefire, but when they're attacking up until the start of the ceasefire or a few hours before it doesn't give us much confidence. I should remind everybody that not only is this World Port Odesa delivering so many vital supplies to the world, but it's also basically an open air museum built by many, many different great nations, including Greece and Turkey. And it's really sad for me, this is my base, to walk around and you don't have to look far anymore for the destruction that was inflicted by Russia. It's very, very sad to see.
No, and Michael, you're providing what is an absolutely heartbreaking reminder that this war continues to rage on, and that U.S.-led efforts to broker an end to said war, so far they've pretty much failed. So in your expert analysis, do you think that there are any other potential pathways to diplomacy that still haven't been explored, especially since much of what they've tried to do hasn't worked?
I mean, how can Ukrainians possibly rely on the United States as a credible broker when at the same time Vice President Vance went to Hungary nearby here just a few days ago and condemned Ukraine for allegedly mixing themselves in US elections and Hungarian elections and not even criticizing Russia whatsoever. But yeah, I think we're seeing right now play out in real time that Pakistan, not a traditional kind of broker of peace, is right in the middle, leading peace talks in the Middle East. And I have advocated on CNN and elsewhere for a long, long time that let's get the Gulf countries back in, or let's get Turkey back in to be in the middle of those talks, because they all have skin in the game, especially Turkey in terms of Black Sea security. One more thing that could put a lot of pressure on the Russians to stop the pummeling of Ukrainian cities is, okay, UAE, for the time being, if you want a US security shield, pull out the red carpet from the rich Russians who are in Putin's inner circle, pull out the tourism visas and everything else, at least temporarily. And I think that would also send a strong message to the Kremlin and also put pressure on President Putin to stop the fighting here, because the Gulf countries are now relying on Ukrainian technology to stop those Iranian drones. So Ukraine has leverage to push them to, in turn, put pressure on Russia.
Right. We saw President Zelensky early in this conflict send in some of those drone experts to assist of the U.S. and its allies. Ukraine's president expressed some concern last week, and I'm sure you heard, that this long-term war with Iran means that his country won't be a priority. When you speak to Ukrainians on the ground, Michael, what do they have to say about what's happening?
Yeah, I was thinking about that overnight as, I sat on my balcony and heard, these drones coming across. A lot of firepower is being expended to bring down those waves of drones. And it does bring up the question, are there enough supplies left to also supply Ukraine with these very, very crucial munitions and rockets and everything else that brings them down, since so much is going to the Middle East? And then ordinary Ukrainians, I think they're fed up with the Trump administration. They don't see them as a credible interlocutor. Mr. Trump has at least twice said no more weapons for Ukraine. So again, it's time, I think, for Turkey and others in the region to take a leading role.
Michael Bociurkiw, we wish you continued safety. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us. For our international viewers, connecting Africa's